Welcome to the Firehorse podcast, where we talk to B2B founders and leaders about their real life experiences and wisdom on building, selling, and scaling businesses, and gain insights into what actually works across sales, marketing, go to market strategy, and AI. Today, I'm joined by Matthew Koenig, VP of Channel Sales at Nodeware, a continuous vulnerability management platform built for MSPs. Matthew has spent over 25 years in IT sales across cloud, security, and hardware, and is widely known as an MSP evangelist and channel sales expert, having spoken to MSP audiences several hundred times. He also runs his own consulting business, White Tiger Channel Consulting, helping MSPs and vendors get their sales processes right. Matthew, it's great to have you on. Welcome to the Firehorse podcast.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
We're glad to have you here. So, first question, a bit about your origin story. You've spent over 25 years in IT sales across cloud, security, and hardware. What pulled you specifically into the MSP and channel world, and eventually into vulnerability management at Nodeware?
Sure. A recruiter. I
Yeah.
was still, I was selling enterprise for a long time, and a recruiter friend of mine called me up and said, I have this company, and if you're in the MSP channel, you know the name, Rapid Fire Tools. They were looking for their first sales manager. You'd be perfect. And I went in, I did my interview and everything like that. And they said, you know what? We really like you. We think you're a fit. And I said, well, let's go. It's something different, something I hadn't done before, being on the vendor side. Walked into my 3 salespeople who ended up being 3 telemarketers. And my boss laughed all the way to his new office going, have fun. So I got to build the acquisition team, account management team, customer success team, all while I was traveling all over the world doing 50 shows a year and speaking at all of them. So that's how I dipped my toes into the MSP space, started to learn about it, get to talk to lots of owners, understand their thoughts, what they like, what they don't like. And I was addicted after that, totally addicted. And then throughout my career, I've worked for a bunch of different companies, VP of channel, VP of sales, always traveling, always speaking, always running the sales organization. And then where I was before Nodeware, we were actually using Nodeware. It was a platform, and we were pulling in other people's software to it to make a complete dashboard. Nodeware called me up as we were finishing up what we were doing with that company, said, hey, you know our software. We really want to get deeper into the channel. Will you come help us? So off I went. And when I got to Nodeware, I got to do tons of different things. I got to redo the sales process, the demo process, the go-to-market strategy, the talk tracks, all the stuff that you, for lack of a better term, want to have control over to make sure it's resonating with your customers and it's doing the things it's supposed to do, which is increasing sales. So I've been there almost 4 years now.
Wow. And when you joined Nodeware, you rebuilt the sales organization, onboarding, demo process, and marketing from the ground up. What was the biggest lever behind the first year of growth?
I think the first year of growth, one of the biggest levers was branding. Nobody knew who we are. So we went out to dozens of shows, talking to people, explaining what we do, differentiating ourselves. The demo process became more concise and it made more sense. We weren't answering people's questions effectively on demos. At the end of every demo, there were just tons of questions. So we redid the demo process where it was shorter, but it focused on what MSPs wanted to know, which led to more trials. And then with our trials, when I got there, they were sending out a link and saying, go ahead and try it. I'll follow up in a few weeks. Well, almost in any industry, that doesn't work but I've always found with cloud software or SaaS software, the biggest objection is not price, quality of the software, it's apathy. They get busy and they never get around to trying it. So I changed the process. If you wanted to try our software, you had to commit to what I called white glove onboarding. We were going to train you while setting it up in the first environment that you were going to test it in. MSPs loved it because it cut down on a lot of time for them. But I'll be honest, it was completely selfish because it allowed me to control the sales cycle. I knew they were actually trying the software. And it was a 14-day demo, and we calendared a 5-day check-in and calendared a 10-day check-in where they accepted before we got off the phone. So we knew we weren't going to have to chase them throughout the process. Between all of that, sales increased exponentially. because we started to get our brand out there and people started to know our name and associate it with what we did. And by doing and controlling the sales process now, only people that were really serious about it jumped into the tribe, not people that were just trying to get us off the phone and go, oh, yeah, I'll try it and go away. And then we're trying to chase them down. So I think between those two things, that was really one of the biggest differences we made.
That sounds awesome. So, you've also built a consulting business helping small to mid sized MSPs and vendors get their sales process and go to market right. What's the most common gap you see when you walk into one of these companies?
Well, when it comes to MSPs, it's sales process. It's repeatable sales process. They go out and they wing it. And when you wing it, they don't ask enough questions. So they don't understand the environment well enough, the people's attitude well enough. They don't even know if it's a good customer for them. MSPs have a habit of taking on customers that they later regret. The other thing with a lack of sales process is I hear all the time, well, I did the proposal and now they're not getting back to me. I can't get them back on the phone. And again, with a lack of a sales process and checking in each step and doing it the right way, that's going to happen. So sales process, and within that sales process, most people fall down on the discovery process, which is the asking the right questions. It's understanding the environment, their attitude towards security, right? Is it a good customer for me? Is it somebody I can actually help? With the vendors, I've helped with sales, go to market and everything, but where vendors seem to fall down, because I deal with new and medium-sized vendors. I'm not going after the threat lockers of the world who are $50 million vendors. They don't need me. And I'm not interested because they're set in their ways. The vendors I deal with, don't have a sales process down, don't have necessarily a talk track down that's effective. And how to talk to people. Once again, what are you talking to the MSP about that's going to help them decide this is right for you? Are you solving a problem or are you telling them all about the features and speeds and everything like that? So go to market, talk track. Also, they go to trade shows, which are very expensive, and come back and say, well, that sucked. I didn't get anything out of it. Well, that's because your expectations of this particular trade show were incorrect. There are branding trade shows. There are lead gen trade shows. You went to a branding trade show expecting to walk away with 30 leads. Their demo process, like we did with Nodeware, didn't resonate. They weren't signing people up right there on the spot for demos. Sorry, my dog is scared to death of thunder. So their demo process, they don't sign up demos right there. They do the chase thing. Someone says they're interested and they chase them. They try to write their whole life story on a banner rather than making a banner or trade show booth that attracts attention. When they do speak, they speak about the product as opposed to speaking about something that's going to attract an MSP audience into the room and get them to the booth. So that's really what I do and talk about with vendors. And then we get to sales, right? Now, what do you do with the leads you got and stuff like that? But, lead gen, email marketing, all that stuff is something a lot of these vendors, it's not their fault. They've never been in the channel. They don't understand what to do and they don't understand how MSPs buy.
Mm, and that's where you come in.
Yes, ma'am. I've done
So
it a few times.
I know you've done it many times. So you've had some real breakout wins with your content, emails and webinars that performed way beyond what you expected. What's your philosophy on cutting through in a crowded inbox?
Well, in a crowded inbox, the first thing is a subject line. What is your subject line says that makes them want to even look at your email? Because if it says checking in, catching up, vulnerability management is different. Okay, that's nice. Don't got time. One of my most opened emails ever, the subject line was, have you peed today? And for those of you listening that are going, excuse me, hang in there. Have you peed today? Into the email. You're like most entrepreneurs, you don't get up from your desk to eat, go to the bathroom, drink anything. You're stuck at your desk all day. You're working in the business as opposed to working on the business. And then I went in to give details about how to help solve that problem. Because the other thing in emails and the other thing in the channel, what are you giving to get? Right? Just hammering them about your product what does that do? It does nothing except for them think you're obnoxious with your emails. So a lot of my emails are how to sell more stuff, how to get leads, how to help get out of working in the business and on things that MSPs face every day. And then at the end, it's, by the way, if you're looking for a vulnerability management solution or you currently have one, you owe it to yourself to look at Nodeware. So there is a call to action at the bottom, but it also is not 10 pages long. It's not obnoxious. It highlights the problem it solves and gives them a way to get in touch. And that's it. And what I found is like with emails, 2 a month is plenty, right? Doing it too often becomes obnoxious and they want to unsubscribe. Your job with emails is to get their attention and also not have them unsubscribe because you lose your audience. As far as webinars, it goes back to the same thing. I did a speaking event and it was one of the first times I presented this topic. It was how to sell cybersecurity services and make it fun. Now, the cool thing is we had over 100 people in that breakout, and breakouts usually don't have 100 people in the room because you got 4 vendors speaking at the same time. So we had 100 people in that room and it recorded because I like when I can get a recording, of my speeches and everything. Well, we threw it out on YouTube, and I'd like to say there was a philosophy and this whole game plan behind it. For some reason, people were searching how to sell cybersecurity. That video to date has been viewed more than 15,000 times.
Wow.
And I still have MSPs call me up or email me and go, hey, I watched your video. It was great content. Talk to me about Nodeware. They'll blatantly call out the video that they watched, of whatever it was, because I got a bunch of them out there now, and say, I really enjoyed it. I learned something from it. Talk to me about Nodeware. And my sales team will tell me that also. So the question is always to me, what are you giving to get? Because if you just want to hammer someone over your product, you're like, no, you're like everybody else. And that's not going to get it done.
I absolutely agree. Is there a partner story that stands out to you where you can help someone grow their security stack or their business in a way that you're especially proud of?
Yeah, I had a guy, God, this has to be 3 years ago already. I had a guy come up to me at a trade show and basically look at me and say, I doubled his business. And the way it started was, are you Matthew? Yeah. The Matthew Koenig? And all of us in the booth are looking at each other like, okay, this is getting creepy. Yes, I'm Matthew Koenig. I want you to know you doubled my business because you taught me how to do this and da 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 da. And again, I'm sitting there going, a lot of times vendor hours are when alcohol is served. I thought this guy was maybe a little bit drunk or something, but he explained when I was at Rapid Fire Tools, I taught people how to use the software, not just how to use how to use it to sell more stuff, right? How you could use it to get in, but that's just the software. Now, once you're in, what do you do? How do you use that information? Well, he went out and used it, and he said he was literally able to double his business by putting that sales process in place. And I can't tell you how proud I was of that because there's nothing better than hearing you help someone versus just sold them something. The other thing that was cool is about an hour later, his wife comes by and she goes, I want you to know something. I said, what? She goes, he was dead serious. You're his hero. Now that made me feel good because now I knew he wasn't drinking a little bit too much and, being emotional. And I can't tell you how much that made me happy. It made me happy than selling any product I've ever sold, which is kind of the reason I started White Tiger Channel Consulting, because it's built into my DNA. I love helping people. I love knowing that something I did helped them grow their business, change the way they did something, and made their life better. I don't know how to describe it. It really excites me.
I love that. Absolutely love it. So you've picked up some AI certifications recently. What's the biggest misconception you hear from MSPs about what AI can actually do for vulnerability management and cybersecurity right now?
Well, it's actually quite the opposite. It's they're ignoring it. So AI has taken on a new role where it's finding, creating, and distributing vulnerabilities. I mean, 4 times faster than it's ever happened with just humans. I mean, people are using this to find them and use them and go quickly. And yet I still hear about MSPs that go, well, I'm not going to deal with vulnerability management because it's too hard. Now, I'm not beating up on any MSPs. I'm saying the misconception, whether it's Nodeware or anyone else, I don't, it's fine if you don't use Nodeware. But the idea of ignoring that and assuming that it's not that bad really is a significant issue and is going to become more of a significant issue if you're not dealing with that for your customers. When it comes to general cybersecurity, a lot of MSPs are not going in and asking the questions, what is your AI platform? Because what that forces someone to do is go, well, we don't have one. Oh, well, how many of your employees are using AI? What platforms are they using? Uh, do you know what kind of information they're using? Because, AI is great for uploading documents and having it rearrange or make it look. Are they uploading anything important like contracts or financials or whatever? Uh, but if they're not asking these questions, right? They're not finding this out and they're not able to do something about it. They're not able to help that customer, let's say, standardize on a particular AI platform and put controls in place that are available now where they can't upload company information, or there's software out there now that's available that'll even track what they've uploaded or done, which is a whole new frontier for MSPs. A lot of them, I don't want to say are ignoring it because that would be not mean, but I don't think that's the case. I think a lot of them are getting paralyzed as to what do I do? Right? Because some of them are not even as far in their cybersecurity journey as they want. And now they have this new big thing thrown at them that they've got to deal with. So the one thing I'll say is MSP owners in general have my utmost respect. I wasn't brave enough to start a business like they were. And every one of them chose to take the leap and start a business and say, I'm going to make this happen. And there's so much change going on out there in the IT world constantly that they have to try to keep up with and keep, informed about and deal with, and then have customers push back and say, well, I'm not paying for that. It's just the respect I have for these people. And I'm not just saying it, oh, I love, no, no, no. I totally mean it. I was scared to death to start something when I was a lot of these people's ages because I didn't have the guts to do it. And they did. So mad respect for them.
I agree with that. Absolutely. Mad respect. So you also talk about needing to love the process, not just the result when it comes to sales. Where does that philosophy come from? And how do you get a sales team to actually operate that way?
Well, it's funny. One of the best videos I play with some of the presentations I give, especially the sales process, is one called Lion Mode. And Ray Lewis gives the speech in the locker room. And it is amazing. And basically, what it says is what you have to believe in sales, right? Nothing ever happened that was in gazelle mode. It only happens in lion mode. And the lion is the king of the jungle, but it's not because he's the biggest. That's an elephant. It's not the fastest because that's a cheetah. It's the mentality. And too many MSPs, when it comes to sales, have the mentality of, I don't want to be there. I don't want to do this. I don't know how to do this. And guess what? There's not a customer alive that doesn't pick up on that. And if you're like that, then they're going to tear you apart. Plus, you're not going to do it because you hate it. That's why putting, I'll call it guardrails, a sales process, having your discovery questions written out, because some of them go, I can't write it. Why not? Have them written out on a pad and answer them right there. You know, fall in love with the process because the process leads to what you want. Don't just fall in love with the win. Because if you can't do the process and you don't want to do the process and you hate the process, you're never going to get to the win. One is inexplicably aligned with the other. And if you don't do one, the other's not going to happen. So what I always tell them is, look, it's a fact of business. You don't have to like it, but sales is a fact of business. Every company is in sales mode. You have to get to the point where you like it and you can do it and you don't mind doing it, or hire someone. But that's a whole different story, because a lot of them hire someone and then go, why didn't you produce in 90 days? And out the door they go. That's a whole different consulting opportunity. But so that's what it's really about, right? It's the mentality of going out. You don't have to be the best at sales. Everybody thinks, oh my God, I have to be the best. No, no. You just have to be confident, authoritative. And when I say that, authoritative doesn't mean you're going to do it. It means I'm comfortable with this. I know more about technology than you do. Okay. And you should feel comfortable in that. And the other thing is talking about how you're solving problems. Don't talk about technology, right? Because that's where you get wound up into the, well, your price is too high and this, that, and the other thing. And that's why a lot of MSPs hate sales, because they end up doing a lot of work to not win the deal. So it's this round circle where we're chasing ourselves over and over and over again. But if you put a process that works in place and you psych yourself up and you get to the point where you're good with the process, you're excited about the process, and that reflects to a customer, guess what? You're going to win more.
Yeah. I resonate with all of that. And you are spot on, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, it's like when I go on stage, right? I always say when I'm teaching sales, I always say, hey guys, you know what's cool about right now? You guys are listening to everything. I see some of you taking notes. I could be up here lying to you right now, but because of the way I'm speaking, my attitude, and my authoritative tone, you're buying into everything I'm saying. Now, by the way, I'm not lying, this words. I said, but I want you to see the point. You're taking notes, even though you don't know me, because you're going, wow, okay, this guy knows what he's talking about. Customers will do that also if you have the right attitude.
100%. So you've made the point that sales is often the most important function in a company. I agree, but it's the least invested in. So why do you think that happens? What does it actually cost a business?
I think a lot of companies think if they hire a salesperson, that salesperson is a salesperson. This is what they do. They don't have to do anything, right? Go. Let me wind you up and send you out. Go sell stuff. And that's just not factual, right? They have this attitude that if I ever a salesperson, it's like a magic wand of some kind, and they're just going to go sell stuff. And what a lot of these companies don't understand is, guess what? That's wrong. They have to understand your product, what you're selling, how you're selling it, what is bundled, what is not. Even if they're technical, they still need to understand your stuff. There has to be a sales process in place. How do they go and repeat your success, right? Owner-led sales is one thing. How does an owner shift what they're doing to a sales rep? And by the way, they can't, because they know things the sales rep never will. They can make decisions on the spot the sales rep will never be able to. That's the important having a sales process. Do you have a CRM in place so things can be tracked effectively? Are you meeting with them regularly? Is everything, I could go on and on. So even as you get in some of the bigger companies like vendors, same thing. They don't train their sales reps regularly. They don't provide them with new guidance and new information and, new ideas. One of the worst things you can do is not constantly talk to your sales force, listen to your sales force to get feedback, change things, train them, all of that stuff. Because what's interesting about salespeople? On the outside, they have the biggest egos known to mankind. And you have to, because you get rejected a lot. On the inside, they're scared little rabbits because they get rejected all the time, right? They're very sensitive. And if you treat them like they're second class citizens, they're going to perform like second class citizens. They're going to feel like second class citizens. When a top sales rep leaves a company, okay, 99.9% of the time, I know this for an absolute fact. There have been studies and I've been there. They don't leave because of the product or the company. They leave because of the management every single time because the management didn't invest. The management didn't show them that they care because a lot of people's attitude is, I'm paying them commission. That's how I'm showing them they care. They can make a lot of money. Okay, that's fantastic. Appreciate that. But that's part of their comp plan because they're doing work that nobody else wants to do. Has nothing to do with the human relations, the caring, and the relationship you show them they have with the company.
No, that all makes total sense. And in my head, I was thinking, yep, I can relate to that. That's making me think of quite a few different circumstances in my career as well.
Yeah, and I love the attitude about commission, right? I also love the attitude about comp plans. I'll pay you very little salary, but a high commission, right? To go do one of the hardest jobs you could possibly do, but because you theoretically could make a lot of money. By the way, I don't have any of the stuff in place for you to be successful. My argument is always, okay, let me ask you a question. Why don't you put your help desk on commission? How many of them do you think would take the job? No, literally, their job is to solve tickets and keep customer satisfaction high, right? So don't bonus the manager on keeping it 90% or better. Everybody is lower salary and on commission based on the number of tickets they solve, the number of companies they keep that don't go anywhere. How many of them do you think would take that job? Salespeople are no different. They're still humans. They just do a different job. And I'd go on record saying it's a harder job because without sales, guess what the rest of the company has? Nothing. If you're not selling, the rest of the company's getting laid off. There's a lot of pressure on the sales organization to perform.
Yeah, I know that firsthand. So, little pivot for you. Is there something about your path that people wouldn't expect?
You know, when I graduated, I hated sales. I never wanted to be in sales ever. Hated it, despised it. It was back in the day where sales was, you know, as far as anybody was concerned, where you were forcing to someone to do something that they probably didn't want to do to make money off of them, right? That was back in that day, used car sales and all of that. Wanted nothing to do with it, wanted to be in marketing. I took my first sales job by mistake. And what I mean by mistake is they were advertising for a marketing rep. Well, their marketing rep was actually a salesperson. And it was a boutique computer reseller in Boca Raton, Florida. They can kind of competed with a CompUSA kind of concept, but they were boutique. They brought in all kinds of stuff and they brought in laptops from the gray market. And if anybody doesn't know what that means, it means they found them in New York for people that bought them in huge bulk and, were cornering the market and stuff. But anyway, I took the gig while I looked for something else and I knew nothing to the point where someone would come in about a laptop and I'd be running back and forth to my boss going, what's RAM? What's a modem? Do they need a bag with this? And after about 4 months, my boss comes to me and he says, hey, are you still looking around? I said, yeah, I am. Why? I'm just going to say this. I'm not going to force you to, but I'm just going to say this. You may want to reconsider. And he handed me my first commission check. And I was like 22 years old and it was $3,000, which back then, I had a lot of money, especially for a 22-year-old to make, in a month. So I went, maybe there's something to this sales thing. And off we went. And my attitude back then was to read everything, learn everything. I mean, I absorbed information like it was going out of style. It got to the point where, as a sales rep, I could configure an entire storage subsystem. I could build servers. Now, I didn't because that gets in the way of sales. You want your sales engineer to do that. But the point is, I could have a conversation with a customer on a technical level, go back and talk to my engineering staff, tell them exactly what they needed and why. And of course, that made me way more successful, right? Just hugely. And so my career started doing this and hasn't stopped since.
Mm. Yeah, well, that would be hard for anyone not to pursue. So I love the name White Tiger Channel Consulting. Out of all the animals in the animal kingdom, why a white tiger?
You know, I've always been fascinated and loved tigers. Tigers are smart, they're sleek, they're stealthy, but you don't want to mess with them. And I'm not saying it in the way you don't want to mess with me. I want to instill that in you. I want to instill processes and philosophies where you go out to sell stuff or do stuff and go, yeah, I got this. I got it. Hear me roar. So to me, a tiger represents something that's strong, quiet, but completely formidable to have to deal with on a regular basis. Because you know that as long as you're good with them, they're going to be good to you. But if you're not, it's going to be a different story. And I think that goes back to the philosophy about sales, right? You have to treat your customers with respect, but at the same time, you can't let them push you around. And part of it came out of the philosophy that I have in the fact that if you look at the IT market in general, there are a lot of companies that come in and negotiate on price. They try to be the cheapest. And what I always try to explain to people is, okay, let's talk about that. Your favorite car, let's say, is a Porsche 911, and you finally have the money. You go to the lot, you pick out the one you want. It's literally got 3 miles on it, and you drive it away. You have a 1995 pickup truck. It's got spots of rust on it. It's got 300,000 miles on it. Or you're using that for either work or yard work or whatever, right? That kind of stuff. Look at me straight in the eyes and tell me you're going to treat both of those the exact same way, because you're not. The cheaper one is not necessarily going to get an oil change on time. It's not going to get washed regularly. It's got some rust spots on it, right? If the tires need to be, you're going to wait to the absolute end to change the brakes and tires and stuff on that. With the Porsche, if it squeaks once, you're into the service bag. Guess what? If you're the cheapest, people treat you like it. And that's another thing when I talk about being a tiger and going out there, right? Stop letting people walk on you. Take the customers that you want, and don't take customers that are going to spend 50% less than your best customer, but take up 70% of your time. And we've all been there. We've all made that mistake. And I hope you to teach people how not to make that mistake.
Mm. No, that's very good advice. And I think everyone needs to get your further advice on that, please. So, if anyone wants to learn more about Nodeware or reach out about your consulting work at White Tiger Channel Consulting, where's the best place for them to go?
So for Nodeware, one, you can go to nodeware.com, Nodeware. You can also email me there at Matthew, you can see it on the screen, with 2 T's, Koenig at igicyberlabs.com. Feel free to reach out. Happy to talk to you. Happy to do a demo. If you can't figure it out by now, there's no high pressure sales involved. We'll talk through it and figure out if it's a good solution for you. With White Tiger, you can go to whitetigercc.com. My website will have all my services listed, et cetera, et cetera. You can send in a form. It's got my phone number on there. Feel free to reach out. I give a 30-minute no charge consultation, and you're more than welcome to bring a specific problem to that consultation. And here's the cool thing. We solve it in 30 minutes and that's all you need. Great. You got free help. You need more after we talk? Let's discuss how we can do that. Again, no high pressure sales. I want to help you solve problems. I don't want to convince you that you should do business with me. So take advantage of the 30 minutes. You got nothing to lose. And I promise, I've solved problems in 30 minutes and had people after that just recommend me because they didn't need anything else. So it is what it is.
Good deal. And I'll pop those contact details below the video as well. Matthew, this has been a brilliant conversation, especially hearing how you think about sales as something to be nurtured and not just measured. Thanks again for your time. Really appreciate it. And to our audience, thanks for tuning in. We hope to see you again next time.
Thanks.